right, so let's dive into this Bonfire Night thing, or Guy Fawkes Night, as it's also called. I mean, you've probably seen the pictures, right? Massive bonfires all over the UK, crazy fireworks displays, and it all goes down on the 5th of November. But what's the story behind all this spectacle?
Well, it's a story that goes all the way back to 1605, a time when religious tensions were, well, pretty high in England. King James I, a Protestant, he was on the throne, and a group of Catholics were feeling more and more marginalized, and their frustration kind of led them to come up with this, I guess you could say, daring plan, the gunpowder plot.
So they weren't messing around. This wasn't just a few fireworks to make a point. They were really trying to shake things up, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They actually planned to blow up the Houses of Parliament. And I don't mean damage it, I mean completely destroy it, with King James and the entire Parliament inside.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about this Guy Fawkes character. Why does this guy get his own night?
Well, Guy Fawkes was the one they caught. Red-handed, guarding all those barrels of gunpowder. They had them stashed under Parliament. And he basically became the face of this whole plot. And in the end, a symbol of its failure.
So how'd they get caught? Did they, just leave him down there with a lit match or something?
Not quite. One of the conspirators got cold feet, I guess you could say, sent an anonymous letter warning a relative, told them to stay away from Parliament on November 5th. And, well, that set off an investigation, led them straight to Fawkes and the explosives.
So this could have been a national tragedy, but now they celebrate it.
It is a little ironic, isn't it? Something that started as a serious attempt to overthrow the government turns into a yearly celebration of, well, the plot failing. The bonfires and the fireworks, it's all symbolic. They represent the disaster that was avoided.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's break down some of these key terms. First up, bonfire. What's the deal with these massive fires?
Well, you can think of it as a way of kind of burning away the past, a way to cleanse and renew. It's not just any fire, though. It's this massive communal event. People gather and watch the flames, and they often throw an effigy of Guy Fawkes in there, too.
Right, the effigy. That's the straw-filled figure you see in the pictures. So they burn Guy Fawkes in effigy every year. Is that like symbolic punishment or something?
Yeah, exactly. A way to express relief that the plot didn't work. It's like getting rid of evil or danger. Of course, it's all in good fun these days, and kids usually help make the effigies.
And what about the fireworks? Just for the spectacle? Or is there more to it?
Well, partly spectacle, of course. But they also represent that gunpowder that never went off. It's like taking the power of the explosives and turning it into something beautiful, something everyone can enjoy.
And we can't forget Parliament. That was the target after all. It's more than just a building, right?
Oh, definitely. Parliament represents, the heart of British government. It's like the symbol of power and authority. By targeting Parliament, the conspirators were trying to strike at the very core of the nation.
So this event is really ingrained in British culture. I mean, centuries of tradition here.
That's right. Kids learn about Guy Fawkes from a young age. They even recite rhymes about him, and they build their own effigies. It's a night that brings communities together, year after year.
You've really painted a picture here. I can almost hear the crackle of the bonfire, the boom of the fireworks.
It's a unique celebration for sure, a mix of history, spectacle, and a little bit of dark humor.
Definitely adding this to my list of must-see events. I bet our listeners are feeling pretty knowledgeable about Bonfire Night now.
Yeah, maybe they can even teach their friends a thing or two about this quirky British tradition.
All right, so we've covered the basics of Bonfire Night, but there's always more to uncover. So stick with us. We'll be right back after a short break. You know what's amazing? This event that could have been a huge turning point in British history, and now it's this, I don't know, almost lighthearted tradition.
Yeah, it really shows you how resilient culture can be, right? How societies can take something dark and turn it into something that brings people together.
And speaking of cultural impact, one of our sources mentioned how Bonfire Night vocabulary has made its way into everyday language.
Oh, absolutely. You hear phrases like, that's going to backfire, which goes right back to the gunpowder plot.
Yeah.
And those unintended consequences,
So even if someone doesn't know the history, they're still using language shaped by this event from centuries ago. That's pretty cool.
It really shows how deep this event runs in the British psyche. It's not just remembering history. It's like it's woven into their language.
Yeah.
How they express themselves.
It makes you wonder if there are other phrases we use that have these surprising historical origins. But let's stick with Bonfire Night for now. One source talked about how the celebration is viewed in Spain. which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because remember, Spain was mostly Catholic back then, during the gunpowder plot.
Right. So how do they refer to Bonfire Night in Spain?
Well, they use terms like hogueras, which basically means bonfires. And it's interesting, bonfires have a similar meaning in a lot of Spanish-speaking cultures. They're often connected with festivals and celebrations.
So even though the history is different, that image of a bonfire as a gathering place, a symbol of festivity, it seems to go beyond cultures.
Exactly. And then there's fuegos artificiales, which literally means artificial fires. Pretty accurate description of fireworks, right?
It's fascinating how different languages describe the same thing. And of course, we can't forget effigy, which is just effigy in Spanish.
Yeah, and even across languages, that image of creating and burning an effigy, that's powerful, a way of expressing emotions and symbols.
It's like a universal language of ritual and symbolism, even if the rituals themselves are different. This source also pointed out some other Spanish terms related to the history of Bonfire Night, like complot, which just means plot.
Right, and complot. It really emphasizes the secrecy and intrigue of the gunpowder plot. You know, you can almost picture it, the secret meetings and whispers, even if you don't know the whole story.
And then there's Rey Jacobo, which is King James I in Spanish, obviously.
It reminds us that this wasn't just an attack on a system. It was a real threat to a real person. Knowing the intended victim makes the story even more intense.
And lastly, pólvora, which means gunpowder.
That word gets right to the heart of it all. The plot, the fireworks, it's like you can feel that raw power, the power the conspirators wanted to unleash, a reminder of the potential for destruction. That was thankfully avoided.
It's really interesting how these Spanish terms, even in translation, add a whole new layer to our understanding of Bonfire Night.
It's a great example of how different perspectives can enrich our understanding, even for events we think we know. It opens up new ways of thinking and interpreting things.
So as we get deeper into this celebration, what do you find most surprising or intriguing about Bonfire Night?
I think it's that contrast between darkness and light. You know, this event started from a place of anger and division, but now it's a night of unity and celebration. It makes you think about how societies deal with trauma and find ways to heal and move on.
Yeah, it really is amazing how Bonfire Night manages to, balance remembering the past with just having fun.
It really shows you how resilient people can be, taking something that could have torn a nation apart and turning it into, well, a celebration. It's pretty remarkable.
And it's not just about the history either, right? It's about the community, people coming together around these bonfires, sharing stories, watching the fireworks. It's something that connects generations.
Absolutely. It reminds us that even when things are tough, we can still find ways to connect, to find joy and move forward together.
So before we wrap up our deep dive into Bonfire Night, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. Imagine if the gunpowder plot had actually worked. How do you think British history would be different? Or even world history, for that matter?
That's a question that opens up a lot of possibilities. Would the monarchy have been abolished? Would England have fallen into chaos? Or would a new government have risen from it all?
It's fascinating to think about how one single event could have changed everything.
Yeah, Bonfire Night really shows us that history isn't just dates and facts. It's a living story, and it's still shaping who we are today.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Bonfire Night. We hope you've learned a little bit more about this unique celebration, from its explosive origins to its lasting impact on culture.
And hey, maybe you'll even light a sparkler or two. In honor of this quirky British tradition,